Hi.
Hello. What's that?
Maddie, cease music.
Thanks, Maddie.
Welcome. We
Thank you.
we have all been we being me and Maddie are so excited for this. So take it away. JFK assassination.
I'm really excited for this too. I feel like I'm on gay InfoWars right now. This is awesome. Yeah, let me get the Wikipedia page for the JFK assassination pulled up so I can just read from that. Just kidding. Yeah, I didn't. Was I supposed to like prepare for
No,
this?
just talk about it. You
I,
have 15 minutes. You can
okay.
talk about the
Yeah, I don't
JFK
have like
assassination for 15 minutes.
cool. Yeah, I don't have PowerPoint slides or anything.
No, don't worry.
Okay, good. Well, how much do you know about that?
I
I need like a
know
frame of
I've
reference.
got like a couple books back here, like some Peter Dale Scott about some JFK stuff, but you know,
Cool.
um, tell me about it like I was born yesterday.
Okay, so JFK assassination, we're talking about what happened November 22nd, 1963 in Dallas, Texas, in Dealey Plaza, where a lone gunman assassinated. Just kidding. So you can break down it's a conspiracy, right? You can break it down in like three levels of, I guess, like fields or terrains that you can study in or whatever. So you can have like what I think is like probably like the largest focus of it all, which is like Dealey Plaza studying like bullet forensics, talking about like the Warren Commission and debunking like the magic bullet theory and stuff. And that's probably like the least interesting. Like I think Peter Dale Scott even says like I'm not a Dealey Plaza guy because it's like you can debate that endlessly and like I'm not like a forensic scientist unfortunately, so I can't like break that down. But the other two things, I mean, you could talk about like basically Lee Harvey Oswald's background and his different like connections to the CIA and things like that. And then you can talk about like the kind of transformation, like the third level of it all, which is like the transformation of the JFK administration towards the end and how he was kind of pushed towards this kind of position of kind of looking to dismantle the CIA's power and kind of put a huge check on the covert operations that are happening and things like that. So I can start with like Lee Harvey Oswald
Yeah.
and stuff, but it's basically a, so for those at home who are listening, Lee Harvey Oswald was basically the patsy for the JFK assassination. He was the fall guy. Um, he his background is he was a Marine and he was stationed in Atsugi at the Atsugi Naval Base in Japan, and that was the site. It was the site of a lot of things. Like there were MK Ultra experiments that were performed there and things like that. But probably most notably, it was the site of the U-2 spy plane operation that was happening at the time, which is like, and he was doing radar for that, and he had top level secret clearance for it. Like he was already like deep into like secret level stuff at that time. Um, and he at that time was building up kind of this rapport as like a Marxist Leninist. Like he was like learning Russian. He was trying to kind of build this like identity as like a communist, and that led to this defection to Russia, which was in 1959, which was like right after um, James Angleton's like false defector program for the CIA was like really ramping up at the time. And he defects to Russia. While he's there, he does all these things that are very like classic, like false defector program, like kind of things where he like marries the woman in like 6 weeks and uh, like the Soviets the whole time like are skeptical of him, and they don't really like they don't really buy his story that he was this like communist marine that defected and things like that. So he comes back to the United States, and we know now because of the House Select Committee investigation files that like they had a 201 file on Oswald, the CIA did, and the purpose of that 201 file was specifically for internal surveillance. So, like, keeping track of assets that were like considered high risk, because like he was someone who was a false defector who went to the Soviet Union. He had all these secrets of the U-2 spy plane, and that was like a huge thing. Um, so we pretty much know for a fact that he was like CIA, at least for like that part. Um, when he comes back to the United States, he is greeted with this by this guy named George de Mohrenschildt, who's like one of the most interesting um, people involved in the kind of narrative that kind of unfolds. Um, de Mohrenschildt is one of like many different people who will later be killed under very mysterious circumstances after agreeing to testify on behalf of all of this stuff. So De Mohrenschildt, according to him, was told by his CIA handler, because De Mohrenschildt basically his entire life was working at like different like CIA asset jobs and things like that. De Mohrenschildt was told to take Lee Harvey Oswald and kind of introduce him to the Russian American community in New Orleans, which is a notoriously anti-communist group of people. These are people who like fled from the Soviet Union because like the Soviet Union was bad for them,
We
so
have a
like
lot of such communities in this country.
yeah, exactly. And so and it conflicts with the story because Lee Harvey Oswald is supposed to be this like adamant communist, and that later plays into the narrative of why he would have killed JFK, that he was this like lone crazy guy who had these communist sympathies the whole time he's hanging around all of these uh, different anti-communist figures. And his first job there, I believe it's at a coffee company or a print. I forget which, but it's a CIA front, whichever it is. It's also right across the street from the office of this guy named Guy Bannister, who a notorious like anti-communist, like very right wing, you could argue like fascist guy who was um, helping run Operation Mongoose at the time, which was the CIA's like plan to kill Castro and basically destabilize the revolution there. Um, and so Lee Harvey Oswald writes to the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, which is like this organization that's supposed to be,
Anti-Castro
this like
Cubans, right? Right?
it's the opposite
Oh,
actually. So it's supposed to be like communists like defending the revolution. But he never hears back, but he just kind of like starts it as himself. And what we know now is that like the things he was involved in were part of Operation Mongoose, of these different things of like creating false sympathizers with like pro Castro groups to try to like both infiltrate them and like um, create like spectacles and things that would like create a bad image for them or whatever. And so he's doing all of that and is like located at the place where they're like running Operation Mongoose at the same time, and like around all of these people who have these like very anti-Kennedy kind of politics, which I guess that's like a good segue to talk about like the third thing with like I'm trying to like speed run this whole
yeah. No,
conspiracy
it's
theory right now.
everyone watching. You could spend months. You should spend months learning
Right.
about this.
Yeah, if you want to stay up until like 5 a.m. and have like a great distraction from like your life, it's a great way to do that. Um, I've been doing it for like 10 months now. It's really fun. Um, but so Kennedy, like I think a lot of the like objection from maybe like people on the left or something of like the Kennedy conspiracy theories is like, why would the government have any interest in killing JFK? Like, because on the surface, he's just like, he's a tepid liberal, like, came in with pretty anti communist, like, politics and stuff. So I think one of the reasons why it's worth doing the big rabbit hole of like figuring out all of the stuff and putting the pieces together is you start to learn a lot about the like early CIA, the Allen Dulles era of it. And like, uh, the history is that like, this was a government agency that was controlling like the vast majority of America's foreign policy at the time and like was successfully committing coups in Guatemala, Iran, meddling in the Congo, Haiti, different parts of Latin America. And they were like constantly successful the whole time. They were always like toppling these governments, installing US backed leaders, like getting US financial interests secured and things like that. Until the Cuban Revolution, where there's this big, you know, fight between Kennedy and Dulles and the people who are running the Bay of Pigs operation. And Kennedy basically takes the blame for the failure of the Bay of Pigs. And like I mean, like it's a pretty popular quote that people attribute to him of like he wanted to smash the CIA into 1,000 pieces and things like that. And so like he basically he was going up against what he kind of uncovered throughout his administration of, this huge apparatus of government that had no kind of like, I guess you could say like bourgeois democratic accountability or whatever. It was totally covert, totally like off the record, and he was horrified by it. And he wanted to move in a direction that was antithetical to that and antithetical to the Cold War. Um, so yeah, they shot his brains out, and that's the story.
All over the street in front of
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah. Jackie Kennedy got brained.
It's so fucking crazy. I'm trying to think of a good question for you, but it's just like it. I don't know. I feel like the
Yeah,
JFK assassination is like the like boomers do know that it
right.
was this. Like I've talked to my mom and she's like, "You're crazy about 9/11 stuff," but yeah, the CIA did kill JFK. Like,
Yeah, yeah. My dad is like stringently like anti JFK conspiracy theories. I think he just like hates Oliver Stone.
fair enough.
Um, I got my mom onto it. I like told her, do you know about like the Mexico City, like Lee Harvey Oswald? Yeah, I like sent her all of that stuff, and she was like, "Yeah, that you can't really like explain that away."
You know what's also so crazy is how many times throughout history with other CIA operations the name Oswald comes up with other patsies. Like they just kind of use that.
Oh yeah,
Like that's so fuck it. Like that's so fucked up.
I had no idea that was the case. That's really crazy. It has like a ton of like, because the CIA like it's literally their job to do coups, and that's why they're the perfect people to do this. But like, it has like so many like just dead similarities between like how they would handle something in like Iran or Guatemala or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Thanks for letting me
of
come on
course
and talk
there
about
was
it.
I think they tried to assassinate Jimmy Carter and one of the guys who was like caught for doing that's last name was Oswald. Okay, here's my last
Oh,
question for
really?
you before you go off, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot. Off the top of your dome, how many people do you think are CIA assets that we know, like as a
That
percentage?
I
Yeah, that like
so
the average
well
American knows.
I mean the next person on the show is Grace Ramsey, and I have a lot of evidence leading towards that assertion. Probably, I don't know. Well, that's hard to say because right now the CIA is less of like, it's more just like the State Department and like, I mean, the fucking FBI, like the majority of their budget is literally like informants who are trying to like coerce like 15-year-olds to do terrorism. So I don't know. Yeah, probably like 60%.
Yeah. I would say like
Yeah,
probably most people I talk to are like MK Ultra. Thank you so
that's
much for coming
awesome. Absolutely.
um yeah, we should talk more about this. I have a broad
Cool.
theory that the social media, the internet, is an MK Ultra project on all of us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
All right. Thank you, Mia. You can log off whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. Okay, bye. Take
Bye.
care.
Well, that was fun. Now we have to let Grace in, see if she has a rebuttal.